All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this explainer today. We are going to break down the incredibly intricate, deeply layered magic and combat system taught by Concordia to Era's archers. And what's so fascinating about this is that we're looking at a system that beautifully marries the grounded, gritty physics of our natural world with some truly extraordinary elemental magic. So, let's get started.
Here is our roadmap for the Masterclass. We'll be journeying from the hard physical mechanics of shooting a bow all the way to the metaphysical secrets of cellular magic. We'll kick things off with the foundational components of archery, move right into the overarching laws of elemental harmony, and then we're going to dive deep into the grueling, almost torturous training required to awaken the wind aura. From there, we'll explore the invisible elemental fields that surround every single one of us, and finally, we'll look at how understanding cellular respiration is the ultimate key that unlocks true magical power. Section 1. The components of archery, grounding the physical art. We are starting our breakdown exactly where Concordia started her lessons with Mimi and the rest of the archers, with the grounded, highly practical realities of the hunt. Because you see, before you could even think about bending the wind or defying gravity, you literally have to master your own physical form and your weapon.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that simply hitting your target is not enough. Not even close. In fact, if you remember, one of the archers, Mimi, initially had this belief that as long as they didn't spook their prey, landing a kill was basically guaranteed. But Concordia shut that notion down real quick. True archery, the kind of archery that ensures consistent survival and success against genuinely formidable foes, requires absolute uncompromising mastery of three foundational components. Those are the senses, balance, and material composition. Let's really break down exactly what that entails.
The first component is the senses. Now, mastery here does not just mean having 20/20 eyesight. It means unlocking entirely new, almost unimaginable ways to perceive your environment. For instance, having an affinity for water can actually unlock depth perception, which allows an archer to literally perceive multiple realities linked to the habits and movements of their prey. Think about how crazy that is. Then you have earth affinity, which can grant magnetic perception, letting you seamlessly navigate using the planet's magnetic poles. And if you have wind and lightning affinities, those can awaken zone perception, giving you this vast, comprehensive top-down view of the entire battlefield. But, on a much more basic survival level, just sensing the wind itself is paramount. This brilliantly illustrates just how deeply tied the physical senses are to raw survival. It's like knowing you absolutely always have to approach your prey from downwind so the air doesn't carry your scent and give you away. It is the exact same reason predatory felines and canines evolved to have whiskers. They use them to constantly monitor wind direction to avoid spooking their target.
Moving on, consider the rule of balance. This is our second component. The fundamental, unbreakable rule here is that a weapon must act as a seamless extension of your own body. If you pick up a weapon that defies your natural form, it shifts your center of gravity, completely ruins your accuracy, and honestly, it creates fatal openings in combat. This means you have to intimately know your elemental body type. Agile wind types naturally excel with speedy, ranged weapons. We're talking dual swords, javelins, or bows. On the flip side, earth types, who possess this immense, grounded physical strength, are perfectly balanced when wielding heavy polearms, massive axes, or heavy single-handed swords. Meanwhile, lightning types thrive with piercing weapons like spears, using them to perfectly channel their natural electrical conductivity. You can't mix and match without facing severe consequences.
The third component ties right into that, the material composition of your weapon. This is essentially gear customization to maximize your specific physical traits. So, lighter arrows made of materials like wood or ivory, they grant incredible speed and extended range. That's absolutely perfect for a lightly built archer who's trying to take down unarmored prey from a distance. But what if you are facing heavily armored or highly muscular foes? Well, a wooden arrow just isn't going to cut it. It'll bounce right off. You are going to need heavy steel or iron arrows for that deep, penetrative force. However, and here is the massive catch, wielding those heavy materials requires great physical strength. If a lightly built wind-type archer tries to knock and fire a heavy steel arrow, it throws off their entire balance, drastically reduces their firing speed, and leaves them completely vulnerable to a counterattack. It is this incredibly delicate, highly vital physical equation that you have to get right every single time.
Section 2. The law of elemental harmony, the metaphysics of combat. Let's see how this all builds on itself. Because underneath these grounded physical archery techniques lies a profound, overarching system of elemental physics that governs literally all of life. We are now officially transitioning from the physical to the metaphysical.
You see,
Every single living organism is essentially a microcosm of the entire universe, requiring all four primordial elements just to function. Fire generates warmth, right? And it is continuously circulated throughout our bodies by our blood. Water insulates us from excessive heat and enters our system primarily through our digestion. Wind is circulated via a respiratory system, and it's actually what allows our bodies to release energy. Earth provides the raw functional energy we need to move and live, and we assimilate that directly from the food we consume. And finally, acting as the great conductor of this whole biological symphony is lightning energy. It runs through our nervous system, converting all these different elemental energies into sensory input and output. We are quite literally walking, breathing ecosystems.
Which brings us to a foundational rule of existence in this universe. This absolute law from Concordia dictates that your internal genetics, meaning the unique balance of elements inside you, must balance with the external environmental factors surrounding you. When these two completely align, a living organism exists in what is referred to as the healthy state. Let's put that into perspective. Think of room temperature. When the fire element in your blood perfectly matches the fire element in the air around you, you feel perfectly comfortable. You don't even notice the temperature. That's harmony. But this harmony exists on a very wide spectrum. When the harmony is within an acceptable range, like we just said, you're healthy. But when that harmony is broken, say the fire outside drastically suddenly exceeds the fire inside you, you overheat. Your body falls into a diseased state, or if it's extreme enough, a deathly state. But here is where the magic system really opens up. When the internal and external elements match perfectly, when you achieve true, perfect harmony, you actually lose all physical resistance to that element. This grants you total, absolute immunity to its debilitating effects. But it goes even further than that. Achieving this perfect harmony unlocks incredible, reality-bending, extrasensory abilities tied directly to that specific element.
So it is one thing to sit here and understand the theory of elemental harmony, right? To know that aligning your internal wind with the external wind unlocks something like zone perception. But I really want you to imagine the sheer willpower, the raw physical and psychological toll required to actually reach out and manipulate the air around you. How does a normal, everyday archer achieve this elusive state of perfect harmony?
Section 3. Awakening the wind aura, escaping the vacuum. To answer that question, Concordia puts Era's archers through a grueling, genuinely life-or-death training regimen. The singular goal here is to completely and utterly strip away their subconscious complacency toward the very air they breathe.
Concordia breaks this monolithic task down into 3 intense, mandatory levels of wind mastery that the archers simply must graduate from if they want to unlock their true potential. First, they have to awaken their aerial aura to become hypersensitive to wind. Once they have that sensitivity, they must master the aerial field level, which allows them to actively control the air. And finally, they reach the absolute peak, the aerial sensory level, where they unlock true extrasensory perception and manipulation.
So how do you gain that initial sensitivity? Well, because human beings take the air brushing against our skin, entering our nostrils, and vibrating in our ears completely for granted, we are essentially blind to it. We don't even know it's there. To fix this fatal blind spot, Concordia did something extreme. She trapped the archers inside a massive structure called the Earthen Pegasus. This was a near-vacuum environment with severely minimal air, and she left them in there for an entire week. The silence would have been deafening, the air incredibly dangerously thin. And when they finally managed to step back outside into the natural world, the simple sensation of ordinary wind hitting their skin caused a severe, overwhelming bodily shock. They were feeling the physical weight of air as if for the very first time in their lives. But believe it or not, that was just phase 1. Phase 2 required them to go right back into that near vacuum, but this time they were handed a fiery torch. Their task? They had to keep that single torch lit from sunrise all the way to sunset. Now, both the archers and the torch were consuming the exact same severely limited oxygen supply. At first, they failed miserably. They were literally throwing up from nausea as the air depleted in just a matter of hours. But then, Mimi noticed something crucial about Concordia. Concordia wasn't struggling at all. She was just sitting there, maintaining a deeply calm, slow, and steady breathing rhythm. Suddenly it clicked. The archers realized they had to consciously regulate their own breathing rhythms to literally extend the life of the flame. By slowing their respiration down to an exact science, they learned to subconsciously control the air consumption within their environment. And by doing that, they passed the test and fully awakened their sensitivity to the wind.
Section 4. Understanding elemental fields, the invisible ocean. Having acquired this profound, hard-won sensitivity to the wind, the archers are finally ready to understand the invisible structures that surround us every single day of our lives. They are ready to truly understand elemental fields.
To really grasp what an elemental field is, I want you to think of a fish completely unaware of the aquatic field it swims in. To the fish, the water isn't a field, it's just reality. It's everything. But to a human observing that fish from the shore, the aquatic field is a very distinct, measurable, contained environment. Humans are similarly totally blind to the atmospheric, magnetic, and photonic fields we constantly interact with. These fields exist simultaneously all around us, layered over each other, almost like the layers of an onion, and every living creature with a specific elemental affinity can tap into their respective field. Sharks, for example, use specialized organs called the ampullae of Lorenzini to literally sense electric fields in the water. Birds use the Earth's magnetic field as an invisible map to navigate during migration. Elephants actually use their tusks to tap into subterranean aquatic fields, allowing them to follow the invisible flow of underground water sources across the savanna. It is an entire, bustling, unseen universe operating right under our noses.
And this dynamic perfectly explains how a beneficial field can suddenly turn detrimental. A beneficial field promotes your health, and you usually have an evolved organ to process it, like lungs for an aerial field or chlorophyll in plants to process a photonic field. But a field becomes detrimental in two very specific ways. First, if the external element reaches an extreme your body simply cannot handle, like standing in an extreme heat wave. Second, and this is much more dangerous, a field becomes detrimental if you simply lack the organ to process it in the first place. A human suffocates in an aquatic field not because the water is evil, but simply because they lack gills. This biological reality maps directly to the elemental magic system. If you have a poor affinity for an element, confronting its field head-on will rapidly inflict debilitating status effects on you.
Section 5. Cellular Respiration and Magic. Breathing Reality. Now we reach the absolute zenith of Concordia's Masterclass. This is the exact point where the hard biology we've been discussing and the mystical magic system seamlessly, beautifully intertwine. To willfully manipulate the aerial field, we have to completely rethink the concept of breathing. Respiration isn't just about oxygen diffusing into the bloodstream to keep you from passing out. Metaphysically, in this universe, it is the ultimate, constant exchange of life energy between a living being and its surrounding elemental field. The physical process of inspiration, breathing in, actually absorbs external life energy from the field right into the body. Conversely, expiration, breathing out, actually releases a tiny fraction of your own internal life force back into the environment. You are constantly, second by second, in a reciprocal energy exchange with the entire world around you. Let's look at the actual biological mechanics of how this turns into magic. When we breathe, air combines with the plasma in our blood. Through a difference in concentration, simple diffusion allows the air to move from the tiny air sacs in our lungs into the capillaries and eventually out to every single cell in our body. But Concordia's true revelation here, and this is the part that is just absolutely mind-blowing, is that it is not just your lungs that breathe. Every single microscopic cell in your entire body respires. By focusing their newly awakened, razor-sharp wind sensitivity, the archers actually learn to consciously program and control the microscopic breathing rate of their very cells. They bypass the lungs as the sole control mechanism. By controlling the cellular respiration across their entire body, they could directly and forcefully manipulate the massive aerial field surrounding them. The results of this training, as you might expect, are nothing short of spectacular. By surviving the horrors of the Earth and Pegasus, passing that near-impossible torch-breathing test, and mastering the conscious respiration of their own cells, Mimi and the archers finally graduated from the aerial field level. They unlocked the jaw-dropping ability to telekinetically levitate objects. They could forcefully alter the trajectory of their arrows mid-flight to ensure a perfectly impossible strike, and most impressively, they achieved true, unassisted flight, vastly expanding their capabilities as the village's premier scout team. They didn't just learn to use the wind, they quite literally became one with the wind. Which leaves us with this incredible, truly mind-bending thought to close on. We just saw what achieving perfect harmony with just the wind element looks like. We're talking flight, telekinesis, incredible extrasensory perception. But as Concordia mentioned, there are chronofields governing time itself, allowing us to age and accumulate memories. There are photonic fields governing light. If a warrior could achieve this exact level of cellular mastery and perfect internal-external harmony with the element of time, or light, what unimaginable, godlike limits of the cosmos could they unlock? It is a thrilling concept that shows just how deep and seemingly limitless this magic system truly is. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today, and keep questioning the fields around you.